Class 3 on to individual taxation. Kindly recall that discussion we have just made in the last two classes, where for dependency test, there were three conditions, and all the three conditions are to be satisfied. That is why the title itself is to be read as 3 by 3. The dependency test, all the three are to be satisfied, then you call that as what? 3 by 3. Taxpayer for whom a dependence test is taken up, he himself, if he were to be a dependent on somebody, you cannot have that test performed at all. To say that you are having some dependent, you should be an independent person. You cannot be a dependent on somebody. That is the basic logic. To the dependent shall not file any return of income. See, when you say as a dependent, so the person should be having some qualities. And one of the qualities being the person should not be filing any return of income. But there is an exception, except to claim refund of tax under MFJ. Imagine that the dependent being is daughter and married one, and she would be joining her husband in filing the return for the purpose of claiming refund. Only for that purpose, you can take it up. If she were to pay tax, then dependency test on which she will be filing. Just an example. The other important thing for dependence is that the person should be a US citizen or resident of US, Canada, and Mexico. Yesterday, we have, or in the last class, we have discussed more about why this preference is given. Now, this 3 by 3 test should naturally be satisfied. There is no relaxation, there is no exception. Then we take up for qualifying child the conditions which are to be satisfied. Here again, all the conditions are to be satisfied. Here, the number of conditions being 4. So, cars. C stands for it should be a close relative. Then, when you say as a child, say up to what is there should be always an age limit for calling the person as a child. So, less than 19 or less than 24 in case of a full-time student. Correct. Say when a person is pursuing education, quite naturally he will be a little elderly, and there should always be a limit that they got to fix. Should be less than 24 years in case of full-time student. What is a full-time student and all that we will have as a discussion separately. Or and there could be a person who would continue to be considered as a child, regardless of the age when he is differently able to person A. So first one being close relative and the next one is based on the age. So all the conditions are to be satisfied. Third, the taxpayer should be meeting 50% of the cost of upkeep of a tax year of the residence of the taxpayer and the child lives in the same residence. So please just understand the taxpayer is expected to meet more than 50% of the cost of the upkeep of the house of that particular tax year, and that house in which the child and the taxpayer should be living. Then item number 4, this is support. This is what we call it out as no support test. But for the sake of convenience, we will be taking it up as support. What is that? The dependent should not have contributed more than 50% of the support expenses by the child. That child should not be supporting more than 50% of his or her expenditure. So that means if the child were to support more than 50%, then it will be failing in this particular test and it will not qualify as qualified or qualifying child. So in short, from now on, we will be referring to as qualifying child as QC. So what are the 4 important tests? So the moment when you are taking up the matter for any evaluation, you go by this particular order: close relative, age, then R. R stands for what? The residential place where the taxpayer is expected to meet more than 50% of the cost of the whole, that is cost of the household of that particular year. Okay. Then lastly, support. This is what we call it out as a no support test. So the dependent should not have met more than 50% of the expenditure incurred by the child. Okay. All the four conditions are to be satisfied. That is the reason as why you have 4 by 4 test. Then importantly, even if one of the condition is not satisfied, so please understand, even if one of the conditions, that means all the conditions are to be satisfied, is not satisfied, then the person cannot be taken as qualifying child. One important thing is that a person will be taken up as qualifying child only by one person. So therefore, a qualifying child cannot be claimed by two or more persons. It can be claimed only by one person. So are you clear? So for qualifying child test, four conditions: C, A, R, and S. Cars. Close relative, age factor. Then you have residential test. Then item number 4 is for support test. That is no support test. Then let us just continue with qualifying child for some more points that we have. Overall, generally to be taken up as qualifying child or children. So people might always be having this sort of doubt. So when we talk something about widow or widower or surviving spouse, it should be that of biological, then stepchild, adopted child, but not foster. So here, please leave that particular discussion there itself. So the moment when we talk something about as child, so the meaning of child will undergo a lot of change at different places. So here, son and daughter, all types. What do you mean by all types? In the case of qualified W or qualified WR, you get foster outside. Here you got to include. So foster son, foster daughter, all are to be included as qualifying child. The next important thing is that brothers and sisters will also be taken up as qualifying child, which is not the case when it when it was taken up for discussion for qualified widow or widower. So always have the clarity, don't have the confusion. So for qualified widower, that discussion is over. Please just don't carry forward here. Okay. Then brothers and sisters, all types, step brother, and that sort of thing. Say you just biological own brothers and sisters and step brothers and sisters cannot be taken up. Then half brother, half sister, and all that. Yesterday, that is in the last class, we were just taking up. So therefore, I've just put within brackets all types. So whatever discussion that we have already made on this particular area will continue to be there. So instead of avoiding the repetition, I put it within brackets. Then one important thing is that whatever you take it up as a qualifying child dependent for that particular purpose, that is qualifying child or qualifying relative, especially qualifying child, we are expected to have certain age limit. What is that age limit? To the taxpayer, these people who are considered as qualifying child should be younger to the taxpayer. See, in no case you can have this qualifying child being elder to the taxpayer. So therefore, that means elder brothers and sisters are outside the scope of the understanding of the child. So this may not be stated explicitly, but we have got to understand. So sometimes they may be asking some questions, so you got to be a little alert. So we are talking about CARS, cars. So under that, we have just talked something about age as a part, and there, when the child were to be age less than 24, full-time study is what we have just taken up. What is a full-time? So who attends an educational institution for a minimum of a part of each of the 5 months of a tax year. say why we should have a part of each is that not all the days in a month you can have any place where teaching will be carried out. You just find Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe the weekends they will not be having. So you cannot be expecting all the 30 days. That is the reason as why you have a part of each of the 5 months of a tax year. In a tax year, in the 5 months, whether they hold the 10 days or 15 days, 20 days, or all the 30 days, we are not really worried. A part of each of the 5 months of the tax year. And one more expectation that they have the educational institute should have a full-time faculty. And next thing that you expect is that educational program should be that of a daytime program. So if these conditions are satisfied, then you consider that as full-time study. Otherwise, it is going to be a part-time study. So when it is part-time study, then they will not be qualifying under QC. So have that in your mind. The next, no support test. What is no support test? So remember that we are taking up CARS. So there under A, we have taken up the full-time study, and for that we are having an extra discussion about 5 months and a full-time faculty. And one important thing that we have just found out that it should be a daytime program. The next, the person who is claiming as qualifying child should not have supported for his or her expenses more than 50%. Up to 50% is okay. More than 50%, then there is a problem. So it will automatically get disqualified. At the same time, taxpayer might have also not supported 50% of the expense of the qualifying child. What do you mean by that? See, you expect the target person not to have spent more than 50% would mean that target person maybe might have met or might have paid 50% or less. That should not be misunderstood that the taxpayer should cover up the balance amount. Supposing if the target person is A, spend 40% for his or her own expenses would mean there is no expectation that the remaining 60% should be supported by taxpayer. So please understand that 60% itself would be supported by two different persons. It might be the taxpayer would have taken up 30%, grandparents would have taken up 30%, so thereby meeting that 100%. So the only thing that you should be understanding is that the target person should not have spent more than 50%. Then two or more persons might have contributed or supported the child, which will be referred to as multiple support arrangement, which you call it out as MSA. Now, when you have many people taking it up, then under whose scope the person will be taken up as qualifying child. Correct. Then the person who contributed the maximum will have the eligibility to consider that target person as a qualifying child, because only one person can take up. Then is there any threshold that the supporting person should have contributed something? Yes. At least 10% a person should have supported. Only then he can consider that he had supported. Otherwise, he will not qualify at all. To qualify under MSA, the person supporting should have contributed or supported 10%. Supposing you have 45% and 50% by another person and only 5%, the person who contributed 5% cannot consider for his or her contribution the target person's expenditure meeting as qualifying child. So therefore, to consider that you've done something, it should be more than 10%. Only then you can take it up. For tax benefit purposes, one of the supporting persons shall claim which may be mutually agreed and they are expected to file form 2120. Say when you have three persons A, B and C, three persons supported as 30, 30 and 40. So who has got to take it up as the target person as qualifying child? Between them, they got to choose. Mutually, they should agree, okay, the last person who contributed 40%, let him take. In next year, possibly the other person might take. So therefore, the choice is left to contributors under MSA program. But in order to consider as that they have supported, they should have supported more than 10%. Have this in your mind. Okay. Next, who are qualifying relatives? We are talking about three basic conditions of dependence. Say, what are the three conditions of dependence that you have? That person, taxpayer himself, should not be dependent on somebody. Correct? Then, second one, the person who is considered to be dependent should not have filed a return of income, except for the person can file under MFJ for the purpose of seeking refund. Then the person should be citizen of USA or resident of USA, Canada, or Mexico. Right. Qualifying child for which all the four conditions ought to be satisfied. The child should be a close relative, should not have, should be less than 19 or less than 24 in case of taking a full time. No age limit for disabled persons. And the resident, that household stay for which the taxpayer is expected to pay more than 50% of that particular cost of the household where the taxpayer and the QC will be living. Then lastly, yes, support. That is no support test. Just now we have discussed and we have discussed about MSA. So therefore, we are going in the proper order. Now we are into qualifying relatives. There are four conditions that we have, and it is sufficient that three out of the four are expected to be satisfied. It is not that any three of your choice. So there, in that four conditions, the first two conditions are to be satisfied compulsorily. Between 3 and 4, between the third and the fourth, either one of the two can be satisfied. What are those four conditions that we have? So they are I, yes, R, and H. What is that? I for income, yes for support, then R for residence, then that is relative in fact. Then for H is for household stay. Hmm? We will take up one by one. The first two conditions are mandatory to be satisfied. In the other two conditions, either of them shall be satisfied. Correct? They are arranged as follows. Income test and the support test are mandatory. What are the two? Income and the support test are mandatory. There is no choice that you are provided with that you have some relaxation. No. The next, relative test or household test, between the two, one has got to be satisfied. So therefore, you can say it is 2 by 2 in the first case and 1 by 2 in the second case. So you can as well have both relative test and household test, both can be satisfied. So thing is that minimum 3, but you can satisfy all the 4 also. But for the purpose of qualifying as relative, we should have what? 3 is sufficient and it is not any 3. First two you got to satisfy compulsorily. The last two in which any one can be satisfied. Now, what is that income test that you have? If the person is dependent, we are talking about only dependency. That is dependent relative or qualifying relative. If the person is dependent and earning a threshold figure or more, then he would automatically be disqualified from becoming an dependent. Quite naturally, when a person is really independent, where his income is extraordinary, then why would he be considered as a dependent on somebody else when he is having an independent income? What is that threshold amount? So in the financial year 2021, it was 4,300. In the case of financial year 2022, it is $4,400. See, one important thing which I wanted to tell you is that, say, when it comes for qualifying child, there is no income test at all. You have close relative age, then residence, and then no support only. So please just understand, as far as the qualifying child is concerned, whatever may be the income generated by the qualifying child, there is no threshold there. Please be careful. So the qualifying child could earn more than 4,400, but yet on satisfying all the four conditions of CARS, they will continue to be taken up under qualifying child. So you should be very careful in knowing what to use in which place. What is that? What to use in which place? I will give you a classic example, then you can easily understand as what to use in which place. Supposing your mother is preparing some dal. The dal is little hot, not in terms of temperature, but because of that sambar. Let us assume that it is a sambar like dal with tamarind juice and a lot of hot stuff here. Just put and it is tasting a little hot. So how to
Spicy.
neutralize that? You got to
Spicy.
put a small quantum of jaggery, which will neutralize. Correct. So neutralizing the hotness is done by putting jaggery there. Correct. Now, next day you have coconut chutney prepared by your mom for idli or dosha or puri or something like that. So can you adopt that here? Answer to that question is in the negative. No. Your intention were all same, but what was done for there cannot be carried out here. Similarly, in English, we used to say what is good for goose is not good for gander. What is to be conveyed for ladies cannot be conveyed for gents, even though you call them as human beings. So therefore, you cannot extend the income test, what you are taking it up under qualifying relative for qualifying child. What is not stated there, you should not do. So therefore, keep that in your mind. See, when you find a child is earning more than the threshold that we are taking up, so don't get confused and don't say that it is not qualifying. So when those four conditions are satisfied under qualifying child, they will continue to be as qualifying child. So when it comes for income test, you have got to be very careful. So here the threshold is to be understood as 4,400 for the tax year 2022. So possibly when you had the hangover of studying from 2021, it might be 4,300. So don't get confused. It got revised. Next, it is a simple test that if the person earns less than $4,400, then he satisfies the condition. The person is earning greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to $4,400, then he is disqualified for that particular condition. Next one, what items of income are excluded in the arrival of threshold? What items are to be included in the computation of that threshold 4,400? Is that so? Sometimes you have incomes which are tax free. I am not using the term as exempt income, tax free, social security income, tax exempt scholarships, interest on municipal bonds. These items are tax free. Do not include, do not include under that particular case for the purpose of test of threshold 4,400. And one more important thing is that these items are to be taken at gross value and not to be taken up at AGI level. Now you can easily understand why in the very first class we have reported that template, and that is very important. So please understand. So if that particular person were to have gross rent and expenses, please leave the expenditure, take the gross income for the purpose of other is applying this particular test. Are you clear? So please just understand this is what you are expected to keep in your mind for income test. Now let us just take up the next one is ISRH. What is that? ISRH. I got over. Now it is a support. So please understand what is that we have it for support. The taxpayer must have supported more than 50% of the expense of the qualifying person to consider as qualifying relative. So please just understand the taxpayer must have supported more than 50%. So please understand this may be somewhat similar to that of what you studied for in the case of qualifying child. So please understand more than 50% the taxpayer must have spent on that particular person, I mean the qualifying relative. So this is what you have as support test. Now the question asks relative test. all types of children, including foster child, will be taken up as part of relatives only. So people might ask this question, sir, why would children come here, sir? Correct. So either they will be coming under qualifying child. If they fail in qualifying child, so we got to consider as whether they can take it up under qualifying relative. So answer to that question is possible. Yes. So I have not taken for qualifying child, foster child, but foster child is included under relatives. That's very important. So all types of children will be taken up there. Not qualify under QC can be taken up as QR also. So why would this come? So under age category, I would not have just taken up there. Say for example, the person may be age 20 and he is not in full-time employment, who is in part-time employment and all that. So I got to consider him. Here, he has to undergo through income test. If the income test where he is getting only $4,000, and when he is under relative category with other two conditions, where one of the two conditions he has got to satisfy, if so, then he will be considered as dependent. Correct? So, for the purpose of the income tax return to be filed, how many dependents are there for which all these tests are being performed? So, therefore, all types of children, all types of brothers and sisters, already I have just conveyed. So, it is half brother, half sister, step brother, step sister. So, biological brothers and sisters, so are to be considered there. Parents, generally they write as not relatives, they are coming under special category. So even though it is stated like that, I am just sticking it up. Parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, and in-laws, and all the spouses for them and descendants for them will also be included. Grandchildren, and of course, exception we do have. See, whenever we have something for exception in one particular place, foster you had no foster child. Where was that foster child was there? Any
Qualifying
idea?
widow. Qualifying widow.
Correct. So here also we have foster, but not foster child, foster parents and cousins. Foster parents and the cousins are excluded under the head called relatives. Even though they are excluded under relatives, they can still be included under dependents provided they satisfy H condition. Are you understanding? So, test of household. There are cases that non-relatives might also be dependent. Keep always this in your mind. So, those who are not qualifying here, they are given the opportunity to get qualified, but the rigors are a little on the higher side. So, qualifying child will have lesser amount of very strict conditions. Then in the case of qualifying relatives, it is going to be a little tougher. It is hard to pass is what you can take it up. The condition is that such person should be living with the taxpayer for the whole year. So therefore, any person who is not a relative, whether foster parents or cousins or any unrelated person, please understand, any unrelated person, if he or she were to stay with the taxpayer for the whole year, that he or she will be taken up as qualifying relative. Thus, cousins and foster parents can take shelter under this clause, provided they stay with the taxpayer for the whole year. Are you clear, all of you? So, what are those? I, S, R, and H. This is the order in which you got to tick them off and try that. Okay. Now, dependent on which, firstly, we had what? 3 by 3, then qualifying child, 4 by 4, qualifying relative, 2 by 2 plus 1 by 2. Have that in your mind. Next one. So, not dependent, no joint return, citizen. So those three here cars and here it is IS or H. Here I put as HR. So income, AGI test, support, then household, who are all relatives. Say I'm just taking it up once for the purpose of general reading, though I have just given only small portion here. I have just given a little elaborately. So though I try to bring it out as exhaustive as possible. Child, grandchild, great grandchild, etc., including adopted, stepchild, foster child, brother, sister, half sibling, step sibling, parent, grandparent, any direct ancestors, then stepfather, stepmother, brothers, sisters of taxpayers, parents, then that is what uncle, aunt, and all that. Sons, daughters of taxpayers, siblings, but not cousins, father-in-law, mother-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, all loss. Correct? I've just brought all this list just for the sake of what should I say, creating a lot of exhaustive list of those items. Now let us just take up one by one. Some examples I thought I can just provide to you so that you can alert yourself and be prepared for the discussion. Son 20-year-old, support 100%. The income is reported as nil, staying alone. Now, let us just understand what are the possibilities. Then, qualifying child is not possible. On what ground qualifying child is not possible? On what ground qualifying child is not possible? Because of the age category. Because of the age category, he is not qualifying child. Why? Why?
Greater than
Because he
19.
is aged greater than 18. That is 19 and above.
19. Greater than 19.
That is the matter what they are given in the condition is that the person should be less than 19. That is what they are given. See, now this person is 20-year-old. So therefore, I don't have to just check up the other conditions. Close relative age, and I don't have to test for R and S. I don't have to just do because I have to satisfy all the conditions. If the second
Moreover,
condition is not satisfied, why should I check up the third and the fourth? Therefore, I will not read at all. If a person is a failed candidate, why should I just look into the list of rank holders? When he is failed in one, how he could be there in the list of rank holders? It is a foolish way of looking into this matter. So therefore, it is a waste of time, waste of energy. Therefore, we are just that is not taking it up under qualifying child. But can you say that he will not fit into qualifying relative? That is what I told you. So a person who is not coming under qualifying child might come into qualifying relative. What are those? I, S, R, and H. I, income. There is no income. Threshold limits you don't have. The next, support. What is that? You're providing more than 50%. In this case, 100% satisfied. 2 by 2 satisfied. What is the third one? Third one, he is not staying. He is staying alone. Staying alone means he is living in a different place, but he is a relative. So therefore, qualifying relative is possible. Are you clear, all of you?
yes.
Example 2. Cousin 40-year-old, support 100%, income nil, staying with the taxpayer. So then he will not come under qualifying child. The child means he is not looking for a child matter. The test is only for qualifying relative. What is a qualifying relative? So I, income, no income. 2, support 100%, more than 50% itself is sufficient. Then he is not relative, but he is coming under household. That means he is staying with the taxpayer 100%. Therefore, possible, except cousin and foster parents only for relative, but staying fully at home. So I, yes, yes. Relative, no. For H, it is yes. Therefore, he is possible to be collected under what? Qualifying
relative.
relative.
3 out of 4.
Are you understanding? So next, example 3. Grandfather 80 years, support 100%, income nil, staying alone. See, as far as parents are concerned, we expect them to stay elsewhere, the condition that they should stay with a taxpayer. You don't have. So let us just take a qualifying child, not possible. So qualifying relative, yes. What is that? Income, no. Support he is making. Relative, yes. And H, no. They are staying alone, but yet they will be taken up as qualifying relative. Example 4. Are you clear? Grandfather as before and kid. See, you have grandfather as well as a kid. There are two persons, and all matters related to grandfather will continue to be there. And a kid which is 10-year old, support 100%, income nil, but staying alone. So then you find a qualifying child not possible. Why this kid is not to be taken up as qualifying child? The reason is that under child category there are four. What are the four? Close relative, yes. Age also correct. Then what is the next one? Residence. Then support is there because of the matter that the person is the 10-year-old kid is living alone, not with the taxpayer. It is not passing the test of R, and therefore it will not come under what? Qualifying child. However, this is possible to be taken up under qualifying relative. So generally what will happen is that that one which is not qualifying child may be coming under qualifying relative, provided other conditions are satisfied. So there is always a chance that grandfather is not claiming. See, of course, he may not be claiming because his income is nil. So though I've just given a sort of a doubt clarifying stand, but when income is nil, how is that? He would have claimed, and double benefit cannot be claimed. That is, one particular person cannot be considered as qualifying child by two different taxpayers. That is the point, underlying point. Shall we proceed to the next one? Example number 5. Father-in-law 60-year-old, support 100%, income nil, staying alone. So under what head he should be taken up? So qualifying child not possible. Qualifying relative, yes, possible. How come? So ISR H, no. But 3 out of 4 conditions satisfied. Father-in-law is father-in-law, even if wife is expired. The next, example number 6. So here we would like to take up something about where a marriage is annulled. Annulled means cancelled out. Initially, they were thinking that they were all married and they were just doing it. And there was some dispute and the marriage was cancelled. So it might be a case where the person would not have sought a legal divorce and elsewhere they would have got them married. So the marriage which was solemnized was challenged by the other partner who was claiming that she did not get an legal separation on a valid ground. Still, the case may be running in a different court. So it could be, I'm just giving you an example as how this could be happening. Why marriage would get annulled. So if the first marriage was not properly dealt with any legal proper divorce, and without really doing that when he or she getting married, and if that marriage was initially considered to be a legal one, and the partner in the earlier marriage might have uh, contested in the court of law, then at that particular point of time, the court might see that the marriage which was performed, the latest, is not proper, and he could have, and the court would have said as null and void. If that be the case, how the status of MFJ, whatever they have just done, can that be amended? So a possibility is very much there. So cannot, that is one particular thing. And another important thing is that, see, on that grounds, amendment is possible. See, that is one particular possibility. Another possibility is that when one of the partners, that is spouse, is expired, can the surviving spouse go for filing on MFS basis? So there is no amendment possible. So the point of discussion is that amendment is possible in one case, amendment is not possible in another case. That is what this particular example number 6. So husband expired, and in the year of demise, MFJ was possible. Later on, whether the lady, their surviving spouse, can she change the status? Cannot amend from MFJ to MFS. If spouse passes away, surviving spouse cannot change to MFS. The next particular thing is marriage annulled on 15/4/23. So marriage is null and void, no MFS, no MFJ. So have that in your mind. So this particular period was considered to be married and no marriage, and the status will be for those two could either be single or it could be HOH, depending upon other conditions. Okay, marriage annulment would mean it is considered to be null and void before registration. It is like a cancellation. No valid marriage existed. Are you understanding on this particular issue? So, because
Yes.
people might always have this sort of feeling, what if erroneously they have projected themselves as married, and when it was found at a later point of time that it is not a proper valid marriage, would mean yes, it can be cancelled. Statute of limitation that you have. See, revised returns in India is possible to be filed. What is that? Revised returns are possible to be filed in India. Is it possible for them to amend? In the background that the marriage was cancelled. Yes, there is a 3 years period normally they provide. When marriage is annulled, revision is possible. So you find marriage got annulled in the year 2022 because we follow financial year 2022 for our classroom discussion. So they can make the revision for the financial year 2019, 2020, and 2021. Revision is possible for these years and not beyond. Are you understanding? So when when the partner is demised after MFJ, he or she cannot change it to MFS. Whereas in the case of annulment, it is possible to do it for a maximum period of 3 years. Supposing their previous marriage itself lasted only for 2 years, then that many number of years. It is not that they should go for all the 3 years. So 3 years are actual number of years that they have just done. Whichever is lower is what you can understand. Next one, example 8. Now you understand husband and wife, they have filed under MFG, son is 12-year-old, support is 100%, income is nil, staying at home. So whether he is passing qualifying child. Answer to that question, C, close relative, age, passing, then he is staying in that particular place and he has got no income. So he is passing all the four and yes, 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 qualifying child. Example number 9. So where you have husband and wife divorced with child, who can claim qualifying child? So when they were divorced, the child or the children of the divorced parents, we will call from now on as, in a simple way, as divorced kids. That is kids of divorced parents. So children of divorced parents, or you can call them as divorced kids. But they have not gone in for any divorce. Their parents were divorced. And therefore, in short, for the purpose of referring, we will call them as divorced kids. Okay. So what is the test that you have? So if that child were to be in the custody of either husband or wife, in whosoever side the child has lived for greater number of months, then that particular parent will take that particular child as dependent qualifying child. So this is what a general logic can easily be extended. So always in the audience you will be finding people will be asking when they are half. I mean 6 months each. So nice question. Then test number two is whosoever amongst the parents their income is greater. That is AGI is greater. Then that parent will claim. So please understand always. Firstly, the test is time test. Whosoever is in whosoever custody the child was living for greater number of periods, then that particular parent will have the right to claim as qualifying child. If the period of stay were to be equal between husband and wife, dad and mom, then you get whichever parent had reported greater AGI, that particular parent can claim as qualifying child. However, you just find between the two, if husband is having that greater amount of income, but still he wanted to allow his child to be taken up as qualifying child by the wife or ex-wife, he can allow that, and that particular person, I mean the mom or the divorced wife, in her statement of income, return of income, that is 1040, she has got to file one additional form to say that though I am not qualified, but I am claiming because the other person, my ex-partner is not claiming. So even though a parent is not qualifying, but wanted to do on a mutual agreement between them, they can claim. Say, why at all they want to do that? Let us not go into those details. Okay. So husband is having for 0 months, wife is having for 12 months the custody of the child. Now, mother will claim qualifying child. Husband is having for 9 months and wife is having for 3 months. Father will claim qualifying child. Husband 6 months, wife 6 months, parents with higher adjusted gross total income or JGI will claim QC. I hope that things are very clear. Even before it had just come, we have discussed about that. Now let us just go to example number 10. So now you have husband and wife and divorced with a child who can claim QC. Children of divorced or divorced parents or divorced kids. Husband having 9 months, AGTI only $1,000. Wife has 3 months custody, but her income is $100,000. So here, because of the fact that wife is having greater amount of income, she will not become the parent to claim as a matter of right. So that will go only to the father because the test number one is always based on time. So father will claim that as qualifying child and time test is to be applied first. And only when equal time is there, AGI to be taken up. This is the order in which you got to apply. Are you understanding that? So therefore, time test first and AGI test later. The next, husband 3 months and wife 9 months, mother will claim QC. That's right. Father may claim if mother waives and by filing one particular form is what I said. No, that form is 83332. So father will claim in his 1040 form by filing form 8332. So it is not from, it is form. Okay. Then same rule applies when the parents start to live apart before divorce. The non-custodian parent of the child shall file this particular thing form. Are you understanding? It is not that you are expected to get that divorce being decreed by the court of law when they start living apart. From that time onwards, this qualifying child sharing can be done between them. Is it okay? Then mother has no income, husband is the taxpayer giving 100% support. So under who will be taken up as qualifying relative? So I, H, S and R. So now at this particular point of time, say I would like to try, even before we could take to the next stage, some um, MCQs, which I find will be very interesting. So normally I will be just taking up towards the end, and we shall just take up that. Now let us just try this. Okay, I would like you to read out. So having just done all these times discussion, I want to save some amount of energy. Yes, Mukundan, can you just read?
Mr. and Mrs. Rose are both aged over 65 years and earning $100,000 AGI. During the year, their 35-year-old son Tom lived with them while in college and earned $4,400. Mr. Rose's mother, Levy, lived with them until June 1, from when she was placed in nursing home for an indefinite period to receive medical care. Ivy received no income and received support solely from Mr. and Mrs. Rose. Determine the number of individuals, excluding themselves, that Mr. and Mrs. Rose can list on their Form 1040 as dependents in their 2022 joint return.
1, 4, none, and 2. Okay. Say now, what is it? We should take it up. Taxpayers, Mr. and Mrs. Rose, they are filing joint return. They cannot be claimed as number of dependents. Dependents should be outsiders. I mean, the taxpayer themselves cannot be considered themselves as dependents. And they are reporting income of 100,000. Okay. They have their son, more than you can mute it. So during the year, they have their son, Tom, A35, who lived with them while in college and earned 4,400. So first and foremost thing, Tom, 35-year-old person, will not be coming under qualifying child. Close relative only, because of the age factor, he is not taken up there, and we will not go into check up whether he is satisfying R and S. Now, having said that, will he be coming under the category of qualifying relative? So income test in which he is failing, he earns $4,400. So therefore, Tom will not qualify at all. First and foremost thing. And there are only 4 characters you have: Mr. and Mrs. Rose, Tom and Evie. Evie is Rose's mother, and she is in the nursing home, and she has got no income, and fully supported by Mr. and Mrs. Rose. So she is not a child, and she could be a relative. And a relative, number one, income, she is not having any income. Number two, support 100% by these 2 couples. And number three, what is that number three? Residential thing. So because of the hospitalization and all that, she is just there until June 1st, there for an indefinite period. Lived with them until June 1st, but for medical care, she had just gone out. Correct. And for parents, naturally, you don't have to expect them to continue to be there with the taxpayer. Okay. And then item number 4, what is that? So support, then you have relative and 100%. So when they are coming at a relative, we don't have to just look into household and all that. They need not have to stay 100% with them. So therefore, we consider only one person, I, as there is one, not I, only one IV. See, there is a point. IV is the only dependent there. So now what is the discussion that we have? Tom shall not qualify under QC because of age. Tom may be taken as dependent under QR provides he satisfies the condition therein. He reports income of 4,400, which disqualifies him under QR. Therefore, Tom is not dependent at all. IV of Rose satisfy all the conditions of QR, and therefore there is only one dependent. Are you clear? So just to give a feel as how MCQ will be, I've just started and we need a small break and we will continue with this MCQ after the break. Okay. Thank you. At this moment, I'm closing this particular class. Then we will be getting back after the break.